Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of the Summit. I have with us today somebody I have known for years. In fact, we talk about the importance of your network. Ty and I connected, I want to say 10 years ago. It's one of those connections where we have been a virtual connection, haven't yet met in person, but Ty Osborne is one of the smartest people when it comes to Gallup Strength Finders. Now, some of you may have heard about Gallup. Some of you may have heard about Strength Finders. Put the two together and you get Gallup Strength Finders. It is a system. Well, I'm not even going to try to explain it. Ty, I'm going to let you explain. We're going to go through how it works.
Sounds good.
So, what is it that Strength Finders is, and how can a person use it?
Okay, Ted. Well, like I said, it's awesome to see you in person again after all these years. So I really love playing in this body of work that Gallup has developed. And I'll tell you, Ted, it's over 80 years of research that have gone into this particular body of research. So I love that. It's, scientifically valid, it's reliable over time, there's longitudinal studies, and so I like to say the science is legit. And really what it is looking at what motivates you. And so unlike some other assessments out there, it's not colors, it's not which dog are you, which Star Wars character are you. We've all done those BuzzFeed polls, but it really is looking at individual motivation. And so what I love about it is, Ted, I'm really big on there's no one size fits all. And when especially thinking about the personal trainer relationship between trainers and their clients, you cannot treat all of your clients the same, because that will be a very narrow scope for you. You will be losing out a lot of business if you do. And I think your results will be less effective if you just have one program. I mean, if only one thing works, there would be one fitness book and one diet book in the whole world, right? But clearly what works for one person doesn't work for someone else. And so StrengthsFinder is a great way to get at individual motivation so that then a trainer can craft a personal plan, which is more likely to work for you.
Now, I took the Strength Finders a number of years ago before I knew that you were the guru when it comes to Strength Finders. It's a real easy system. So you are in front of a computer screen, you're asked, I don't know how many questions there are, but at the end—
177 questions.
177. So you're right. There's science behind it, validity behind it.
Yeah.
After you answer those questions, then you are given your themes. And
right.
I liked it because it helped me understand the type of person that I was. But
yeah.
We can also use it now, as you mentioned, with clients. So pull up my Strength Finders, and we're going to talk about—
Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect.
So what do you see?
So what I'm looking at are your top 5 themes. And there's 2 versions of what Gallup offers. You take the assessment once, but you can get your top 5 themes, or you can pay a little bit more and get your full 34 themes. But I would say top 5 is a great place to start, and that's a pretty manageable amount of information for a client. So a couple of things that strike me, Ted, when we look at yours, you've got competition, significance, self-assurance, consistency, and futuristic in your top 5 themes. Gallup breaks these up into 4 domains or 4 buckets, including strategic thinking, influencing themes, relationship building themes, and executing themes. And in your top 5, 3 of those are influencing themes. And so influencing themes are all about moving others to action, which when I look at what you do for a living, like, of course, that fits perfectly. So if I were your trainer and you came to me and I knew this, then I could know certain things. It's not a psychic prediction or anything like that, but it gives me a place to start and some questions to ask that then I can use as we're working together to kind of understand your motivation and craft a program that's going to work for you and be able to support you in the best way. So I love your first theme of competition, and I find it a lot in the fitness industry. So love it, because competition is driven by winning. So is this a surprise to you, or is that pretty accurate?
You know me long enough. You know I compete with myself on everything, even how fast I can drive to work. It is, I think those that have been athletes, it kind of is ingrained in what we do. So I think that's the reason why you see competition score so high with the fitness industry.
Yeah, I think so. It makes total sense. I also see it tend to show up really high in sales or anything where there's a quantifiable metric for how you're doing. Because really, the root of competition is wanting to win. Now, sometimes our themes are not always mature, or they don't show up in the best possible way. So I call it raw competition, or maybe immature competition. That might show up like, I need to win at your expense. But really, mature competition is, especially if you're working with a team or a client, it's we're going to win together. And so I love using that.
You know, I'm glad that you explained it that way, because when I first saw this, I was kind of embarrassed that my most, the highest trait that I have was competition. And that's really the last thing I wanted to think of. So I like the way you said mature competition, and it's a we, not a me.
Yeah. Right. It's very much a we. And yeah, it's not, I have to crush everyone, but it is, I want us to win. And so if I work with a client and set specific goals, then as a trainer, I feel like we're winning too. And so there's a mutual thing there. So one thing that's interesting with competition, again, it needs a measurement, a yardstick. It really needs to know, if I'm motivated by winning, what does winning look like? And so what I would do if I were your trainer working with you, I would ask you that. What does winning look like for you? And we would get really specific. And oftentimes with competition, that can look like, I might want to run a 5K. I might want to set a new personal best in, bench press or something. It can be anything, but typically there's a very concrete goal. And so then we can work toward that. And it's not just like, I want to participate in a 5K. It would be, I want to be in it, and I want to win, or I want to come in with a certain time. And so something very specific and granular, not just, okay, I want to work out once a week with you and hope I feel better. That wouldn't work for competition.
So is the competition self-competition, team competition, or a little of both?
It can be a lot of those things depending on some of your other themes. So when I'm looking at someone's strengths, what I'm not seeing for you, Ted, is a bunch of relationship themes. But if I were, that might be, let's win as a group. So with your themes, they might be more individually focused. This might be sort of personal best instead of as a team. But I think that's an interesting kind of contrast, because if I did see a lot of relationship themes, those people might do better in a group cohort or a class of some sort, or somewhere where they really had a community, even if it was like a specific Facebook group or weekly chats or something, so that they felt like they were part of a bigger group.
The next one of mine is significance. Is that me feeling significant, or is it me doing things that allow others to become significant?
The answer is yes. And I will say, Ted, I love significance because it is my number 2 as well. And it is one of the most misunderstood themes, I think. Sometimes people see significance as sort of a raw version, might be a big ego, but really the best possible thing for significance, it wants to work on things that are important. It really wants to help others see that they're important too. And significance is all about like the bigger why. Why is this important? What kind of legacy are we leaving? Why should we be focusing our time on this versus something else? And so one thing about significance, Ted, that I love, I call it, it has the power to have a virtuous circle, in that the better I feel, the better I can help you feel. And then that makes me feel even better. And I want you to feel even better. So it really has the power to lift each other up. And again, that's mature significance. Raw significance might need a little tweaking so that it just doesn't become all about me.
You know, the thing that stands out for me is the desire for wanting more.
Yes.
You know my White House days, and I think that really resonates because it was, well, what do you do after that? And it's always that constant, what's next for me? And
right.
I'll tell everyone a little secret about you. So you worked with Michael Dell.
Yes.
Austin, the founder of Dell Computers, and is with his charitable organization. So you're coming at this from a place of significance, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I think when you look back over my career, it's not that I had to have the biggest title or anything like that, but I very much wanted to work on things that were important. And I always had a real sensitivity to projects that I felt like were not aligned with the goals. They didn't really matter. They were a bunch of busy work with no apparent reason why. And so I was always the one asking, what problem are we trying to solve? How is this going to be used? How will this improve life for the customer or employees? And if I couldn't get real clarity on that, then that wasn't something that I could get behind. But like you said, I was able to work with Michael and Susan Dell over at their private family foundation, which has a $2 billion endowment and is dedicated to improving the lives of children across the globe. And I mean, talk about things that are important. You know, you really felt like you were making a difference on a global scale on a daily basis. So
if a personal trainer or health coach sees that their client has a high significance score, what does that mean? How do they interact with them?
Yeah, well, significance is one I like to ask a lot of questions and kind of see, because that can come out differently for different people. So for you, I would probably ask, you know, tell me about a time when you felt like you were really making a difference. Or tell me about a time when you felt really strong in what you were doing. Not necessarily physically strong, but you felt like really mentally engaged in what you're doing. And based on what you said, then I would have some clues, like you just said, back in the White House, you were working on things that are important. I'm like, okay, then I would change my language to say, why is this important right now, what we're doing? And then really let's use that as a vision for if we don't achieve this, what things are we leaving on the table or we're unable to accomplish? And so really getting them tapped into that.
My third one is self-assurance.
I will tell you, my friend, you have some fairly unique themes. Significance and self-assurance in the Gallup ranking of 34 themes, those roll in at number 32 and 33 in terms of frequency. So you don't often see these things. So I love it when I see some of the more unusual themes pop out. And significance and self-assurance are a little bit both sides of the same coin. And so significance tends to need some external validation about things that are important, you know, making sure things are on track. Self-assurance says like, no, I got this. And so both of them together are a very strong partnership. So self-assurance would just mean, again, if I were your trainer and you came to me, I would think you really do know why you're here and feel confident in your ability and would trust me as your trainer to be your spirit guide on the journey. But self-assurance typically is not plagued by a lot of self-doubt or second guessing or ruminating over decisions. Self-assurance, when they make a decision, it's pretty much like, no, I'm making the right decision. Now let's move on.
So self-assurance is like my being comfortable wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
It is you being comfortable wearing that awesome Hawaiian shirt, just rocking that thing.
When you talked about it and you said second guessing and
yeah,
I find myself second guessing. So these are just overall things. This doesn't mean that 100% of the time I am self-assured.
right.
There are times where a person with this will have some second thoughts and some doubts, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this isn't an always or never kind of thing. These are more, again, motivational themes and like when you're feeling your best, what's really driving you, what's coming out. And so what I love about self-assurance is it can be very attractive to other people because you look like you know what you're doing and are comfortable doing it. You're not the kind of leader who would be up there saying, gosh, I don't know what we should do, and really kind of waffling on things. Usually self-assurance, by the time they make a decision and project that outward, they feel really good about it. And so can then spend that energy accomplishing the goal or moving forward rather than just kind of staying stuck. So it doesn't mean that you never have a moment where you think or you kind of wonder, gosh, should I make the right decision? But just compared to other people, you probably process through that a lot faster.
You know me too well, Ty. My fourth, and now we're going from the orange to the purple, is consistency. So what does that tell you?
Right. So consistency is an executing theme, and executing themes are all about getting things done. So really, executing themes like to have a goal in mind, and they like it to be clear. So ambiguity would not do well with executing themes. These are going to be the people who want to know, what is the goal? Where are we going? What are the guidelines? Are there any guardrails I need to watch out for or parameters? Consistency tends to be sort of, I call it like the process improvement theme. It very much is, let me figure out a repeatable process because that's more efficient than handling everything as an exception. So consistency is great. It's sort of, divining wisdom and process from chaos sometimes. And it can be great. And so that might be, if that's high for you, Ted, that might be like, I want to know when I come in to work with my trainer, what's the program going to be? And so that I know that in advance and can execute on that, as opposed to showing up and like every time is different. But then you will have clients who might, maybe they're higher in adaptability. They might really enjoy not knowing when they come in what they're going to be doing that day. But I have a suspicion, Ted, that you would want to know, what are we doing? Or at least a framework of what we're doing, and not have it just be a wild surprise every time you would go in.
Well, I think this is where my OCD comes in, where, I used to drive to work the same route, the same lane. So you want to talk about consistency. That's pretty consistent.
I love that. And that's actually a good point. There's a whole body of work about this concept of decision fatigue. I don't know if you've heard that, but you see like certain people, that's why they wear the same thing all the time. I mean, Barack Obama, when he was in office, he only wore like Navy suits or something because he said, I don't want to spend my energy having to make decisions about small things when I have big things to make decisions on. And we only have so much mental energy. And so this is the people who, every morning they eat oatmeal at 7 a.m. for breakfast, and then they just don't have to make a decision about it. So that can really resonate with someone who's got that theme.
It reminds me of Steve Jobs. You always saw him in the black turtleneck, or Zuckerberg
Yes.
on Facebook with the T-shirt. You're right.
Right.
Closets just being the same thing. You just pull it out, put it on. It's done for you. You don't have to think.
Yeah, it works. And if you have a route to work that works for you, man, do it, as opposed to like, woo, every day is just I'll wing it.
It gives me heartache. It gives me angina. I don't even think. My fifth one, and the one that I was actually most excited to see, is futuristic. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I love futuristic as well. That's another one I share with you, Ted. So that one is a strategic thinking theme. And futuristic has a unique gift in being able to see the future and be excited about the future in a very tangible way. And not just in the, oh yeah, things will be great, but like, no, seriously, I can see it in a very real way. And then you can help kind of use that excitement to explain to other people who maybe don't have that gift, their gifts or something else. You can help, explain to them how things are going to be better in a way that really comes alive for them. And so I love futuristic. We tend to like goals and kind of visioning exercises. For a futuristic client, I might say, let's just put the weights down for a second and let's really envision, what is your life going to be when we get to these certain goals or milestones? How are you going to feel? What are you going to look like? How are others going to respond to you? And futuristic would tend to really latch onto that and be excited about that.
So as I hear you talk about these things, I'm wondering if knowing what my traits are, and we talk about your ideal client. Are you suggesting that if there was a client that had the same as what I have, that I might be a better fit for that client, as opposed to the total opposites, that maybe I should find another trainer for that person because we might not get along in terms of the themes?
Well, I'll tell you, Ted, I think, or let me say, what I know to be true is that we see the world through our own eyes. And so that's how we approach the world. And if I haven't really taken the time to understand my client and their motivators, I'm just going to approach them with what works for me. And what works for me may or may not work for them. And so if you're the trainer and you are really high in these influencing themes, competition, significant self-assurance, you might be coming at them with this, real excited, heavy approach about, yeah, we're going to crush it at the next CrossFit competition. And that might scare your client to death. And so that might be the person who signs up for one session and never comes back. And so what I think is, if I know my strengths, that's always first, self-awareness, then I understand what makes me tick. And if I attract that same kind of client, awesome, man, we'll just get into it. That's great. But I need to understand all of the people who kind of come across my threshold and how I can best support them, not just, well, here's what works for me and I hope it works for you too.
So you mentioned there were, 37?
34 themes
34.
In those 4 categories. Yep.
These are all in alphabetical order. Are there any that really stand out to you that if a personal trainer or health coach has one, that you would be excited to see that they have?
So the good thing about strengths is they're all awesome. There's no strength on here that says you're going to be a terrible trainer. Or, this is just not the job for you. That's not it. They're all great. They're all just different ways of getting to an outcome and just really explaining that motivational driver. So I could really look at darn near any combination and say, here's why you are going to be a great trainer. Now, what I need them to understand is, okay, then what is my natural approach that feels good? And how do I really work with a client to see what their approach is too?
So the good news is, no matter what your 5 themes are, your top 5 themes, you can be a good trainer. This isn't saying, well, you need to be an analytical person to understand it. No, any of these themes will work. It just means that you're coming at it from a different approach, right?
That's it. Absolutely. This is not a job predictor kind of assessment. It's not that. This is just what makes you tick and what makes other people tick. And once I have I'm just firmly a big believer in we're better together. And once I have a better understanding of you, I can help meet you where you are and take you where you want to go.
So, Ty, we talked a little bit about the importance of knowing this. So if there's a trainer out there, how do they go about finding out what their themes are?
Absolutely. Great question, Ted. There's a couple of ways. So Gallup has an assessment that we have been referencing that you can take. It's pretty easy. That'll get you some results. But I'm also a big believer in not everybody in the world needs to take an assessment. I mean, you and I like that kind of stuff, but I am not trying to make money by selling assessments. So there are some clues you can use to discover talents. Or if I'm the trainer, I don't have to assess my client. I can just ask them questions about, how do you like to learn? Do you like to read things? Do you need to see me demonstrate? Do you want some additional research? Do you like one-on-one, a small group, a large group? How can I best support you? Do you want text? Do you need to see me once a week, twice a week? And so I'm just really asking questions. I can also ask things like, tell me about, something you love to do. And I don't really care what the topic is. I want to see how they respond. Uh-oh, Ted, I lost you. There you go. Sorry. Well, edit that. That's one spot. So when I'm asking them questions, I want to see how they respond. I'm really looking to see, where do their eyes light up? And this can be kind of interesting in a trainer-client situation, because you might get clients coming to you at a low point for themselves. They could be coming to you because they're dissatisfied, or they feel unhealthy, or maybe they've gotten some bad news from a doctor or something like that. So you might really have to work to uncover some of that goodness that might be hidden a little bit by some of the current situation. But that's just really good questions. I've got a questionnaire that I'm happy to share about. People can go through and kind of see, when's the last time you felt strong? What kind of hobbies do you have? What did you like to do as a kid? If you like to read as a kid, well, that's a different set of themes than I was killing it on the kickball field.
That brings up a good question. So if I were to take this today and I take it again a year from now, are my themes going to always be the same?
Well, Gallup has done a lot of research in that area. And so the most part they would say, Ted, is no. Your themes will tend to stay fairly consistent over time. Now, your number one could swizzle to number 4, maybe whatever was sort of number 7 might pop up a little bit. So there could be some rearranging within sort of your top 10 dominant talent bucket, they call it, but that it would be highly unusual that something that was ever at the very bottom of your stack of themes would ever pop to the top. And so we tend to see these things show up early. Now, I'll tell you what I've seen is we all go through different seasons of life too, right? And if I'm an individual contributor at work, maybe I'm really calling upon one set of themes, but then if I'm the vice president of the group and I really have to, achieve work through others, maybe then a few of those themes would flip up or down a little bit. But Gallup would say you're pretty much who you are.
Even when you're explaining this, the competition comes out of me where I got to do it again and I got to get the exact same role.
No, that actually happens. And one thing to note, it is a psychometric test, and it's trying to get your top of mind answers before you really have time to sort of psychoanalyze what it's getting at. And so once you've had some training on this and you kind of know, then people sometimes go back to the assessment and they're like, darn it, I'm going to take it until I get woo. Like that's not really helpful. So take it the first time and kind of go with that.
And be happy with it. So we talked about the individual trainer or coach getting this, and
right.
We're going to have the link to you, which you can actually provide this for them. They can get their top 5, or like you said, there's another service that'll give you the top 34. And then also talked about, and some trainers might be interested in giving an assessment like this to their clients so they have a better understanding for that. And they can come to you and do that as well, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of it, and I think there's value to that. So a trainer could, craft a package program for a client that, bakes that cost in. It's not expensive at all and just takes, a little bit of time to do. So I think it's a real value add. And to me, setting that relationship up, being clear on the goals, and knowing what's going to really help that person, I mean, that's just gold in terms of that relationship, the stickiness of that relationship over time, and then your ability to attract other clients because you really listen to me as a trainer, not just make me fit into your program.
You've been gracious enough. We're going to give away one of the assessments. It'll be on the website for how to get in contact with you. Ty, thank you so much. I appreciate what you've taught us. I appreciate you going through and showing my future trainer how to best work with me, but also for me how to understand myself a little bit better. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ted. This has been great. And I welcome any questions. People reach out to me anytime because I love this stuff and I love helping other people feel better because together we're better.
Thanks, Ty.
Thanks, Ted.